Okay, in this section, we're going to learn a quadratic formula that helps you to solve quadratic equation. Okay, let me introduce the formula first. So in order to use the formula, okay, the formula can only be used for quadratic equation. So you got to know the structure of a quadratic equation. So this will be the structure for the quadratic equation, like your set 2 work. So there must always be equal to 0, and we will usually arrange it accordingly, like x squared first, and then x, and then constant. So we are targeting the coefficient of x squared, which we are calling it a. We are targeting the coefficient of x, which we call b, and then we are targeting the constant. So we'll be using these three numbers in the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula looks like this. So this quadratic formula can give you exactly the same answer like your factorization. It's just that during the factorization, you got a lot to trial and error if the equation is uh, a bit difficult. So for example here, if you look at example 4, okay, if you look at this equation, I'm quite sure you know how to do it by your factorization method. So once you have the equal to 0, you can do something like this. So this was what you have done in Sec 2. So if the equation is easy to factorize, of course, that's not an issue. But there are some that are not so easy to factorize. So if you use this formula, it actually make it easier. Okay, so the steps are quite easy. Okay, as long as you're very mindful of your own mistake. Okay, don't be careless. It's just putting in your ABC into the formula. It's really very easy, but you could make mistake if you're very careless here and there. So the first thing, right, will be you must be able to tell your ABC. Okay, so if you can tell directly, okay, you can see that A is equal to 1, B is equal to -5, C is equal to 6. If you can tell directly, that'll be good. If let's say you cannot tell directly, the trick is to put the comparison side by side. The trick is to put them side by side in this way. So you can tell that A is equal to 1. You can tell that B is equal to -5. C is equal to 6. So if this is another way to make sure you get your ABC correctly. So once you get your ABC correctly, like I say, right, you just have to insert into the formula. So the formula says minus B. So just be mindful that, right, the formula is a minus B. So if your B is already negative, okay, that means you've got a double negative. That's a possible careless mistake. And there will be a plus minus here. This is a plus minus that um, enable you to get two possible answer. Okay, so my habit is usually like this. So inside the square root part, that's where we call it b squared minus 4ac. So another possible mistake is some people forget to bracket the b, particularly if b is negative. If you forget to square to bracket, so if you square it like this, you get a 25. But if you forgot to bracket, your calculator will actually give you a -25. So that's another possible careless mistake. So b squared minus 4ac, plug it in, and then the denominator is 2a. A is 1. So my usual habit is, right, uh, I will punch the calculator on the inside of the square root. So I'll punch a calculator. I prefer to punch it in this way. So once I punch it in this way, this is a square root 1. Okay, then after I simplify, there is a plus minus. So that is where you get the two possible answer. So 5 plus root 1 over 2, 5 minus root 1 over 2. So that's how we get the two answer. So it will be exactly the same answer as your factorization. So for O-level standard, if you use this formula, it will be worth 3 marks. So to make the worth 3 marks, right, you must show how you insert your ABC. Okay, you must show that how your ABC is inserted into the formula properly. Okay, and then you work your way through. Okay, so sometimes the answer can be a, a not nice answer. Okay, some quadratic can give you answers that are not nice. So the question will actually tell you whether should you give it to 2DP or 3SF. So if the question never say, right, usually you'll be 3SF. Okay, but for O level, sometimes this one it can be 2DP. Okay, so for the quadratic equation that don't give you a nice answer, they are the ones that cannot be factorized. Okay, so for example, 5 here, if I see the instruction giving your answer correct to 3SF, then I'm going to guess that this equation cannot be factorized. That means, right, the sec2 method is not a choice. Okay, so if you can tell your ABC directly, that would be good. If you can't, you do a side-by-side comparison. Okay, this is how you do a side-by-side comparison. Some people will miss out a negative here and there. So if you are the kind, you're afraid that you will get your ABC wrong, then you do the side-by-side comparison. Okay, this one looks more like I stack it up to compare. So after this, uh, insert into the formula. So for a start, if you're not very good with the formula, I suggest you write it a few times. You're supposed to remember the formula. So put everything in, your ABC, substitute in. It will be very much like your, do you remember your Sec 1 kind of algebra? Where you're supposed to, put in the values of ABC. So it's the same thing. Okay, don't press your calculator directly. A lot of people, they like to press everything directly. So I will always press this part. So I'll punch this part in the calculator. The inside of the square roots. So punch the inside of the square root. Okay, this is important also because for those who are taking A math, uh, the inside of the square root will be a topic on its own. So the inside of the square root is known as discriminant in A math. So that will be it's actually a topic on its own. So I suggest you get used to pressing out the discriminant, which is what we'll call which is the section inside the square root. So how I'm going to get two answers. The positive one is one answer. The negative is another answer. So this is the time you can punch your calculator. Okay, and you give to 3SF. So you should be so this type of question is supposed to be easy. So your job is to eliminate any careless mistake. Okay, zero careless mistake for this type of question. Okay, so I can show you two more. So sometimes you may only end up with one solution. Okay, sometimes you may even end up with no solution. So all these, right, will be further discussed in another A math topic. So right now we are not concerned. We're just concerned with solving it. So repeat the same thing. Okay, if you think you're okay with not writing the formula, that's fine. So just make sure you put in carefully. So this part must show. You must show this part. Okay, we need to see how you put in your ABC. And then negative, negative. Then like I say, I usually press the part that is in the square root. So that is my habit. So you can adopt this habit. So I actually get a 0. So I actually get a 0. Okay, so what is the implication of getting a 0? That means if you put a 0, so you're actually getting the same answer. So the inside of the square root is a 0, and you actually get the same answer. So sometimes we call this a repeated answer. So again, in A math, the portion that is inside the square root being 0 will become something. Okay, so in A math, right, we're going to zoom into the portion that is inside the square root. So right now you can try getting the habit. Okay, so another example, you find that here you might end up no solution. Okay, so how come it ends up no solution? Okay, so the comparison that I'm doing right now is not necessary unless you couldn't tell your ABC. I mean, if you can tell your ABC with no mistake, then you don't have to do the comparison that I'm doing right now. So put in. So some people might even find that the formula is very long. I don't think I can remember. Well, you just have to remember this. You should know this by your fingertips. So again, if you look, I'm going to press the part that is in the square root. So I'm going to press the part that is under the square root. And I actually get a negative portion. So that is where you actually get no solution because we couldn't take a square root on a negative number. So this part will be further explored in another A math topic. So just the portion under the square root will be explored in another A math topic. But right now, we're just for E math, right? We are just concerned about getting the right answer from a quadratic equation. So you shouldn't have any mistake in solving quadratic in Sec 3. So this is a very rare foundation work, and it shouldn't be so difficult. You shouldn't be making so much mistake. Okay, it's 100% accuracy that you should be aiming for.